You're listening to Inside the Village, where all news is local and no topic is off limits.
So help me, Bob, it's bully in the alley. Hey, bully in the alley. So help me.
Back for another episode of Inside the Village across the Village Media Network. I'm Scott Sexsmith alongside Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village. Derek Turner, executive producer, is in the room. Good to have you back. You had a couple of days off. We're a little late this week. But nonetheless, we're here, and I'm excited about today's show.
We made it.
We did make it. Here's what I'm also excited about, and this is a little behind-the-scenes, snippet, a little peek behind the ITV curtain, if you will. Now, people think that you and I spend all day, every day together because we do the show. However, that is not true. In fact, the only quality time that you and I get is down here once a week.
That's true.
For an hour or so each week, and the best part of it is before the cameras are rolling and the mics are turned on and the lights are turned down low, you give Derek and I a bit of insight into some of the great stories that you're working on.
It's fun. It's like a story idea meeting when you come down here and you say how are things going, and I end up talking to you about what crazy cracker story that we're working on. And there's always good ones in the works. And we get talking to about how certain stories came together, which your behind the scenes segment explores that all the time, right? Which is getting reporters on to. Because people think, well, this story just appears in my news feed out of nowhere. It just is there. But no, there's a ton of work that goes into these stories, and sometimes it's many days and weeks of work that go into the stories.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. It's not like you just sit down at your laptop and decide to bang out a story. Sometimes, it is a lengthy process.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of the Village Media sites. And, I've been here a couple of years now, right? And I think I've had a big learning curve myself. Mm-hmm. And there's kind of all different kinds of stories. And sometimes we do have a story, like we've had breaking news all over our sites today that we get up within minutes. We want that story out there. But we also have stories that have taken many days and weeks in some cases to cobble together the information and get it out there. And so readers, for fault of their own, they wouldn't necessarily understand how that works or just know that that's the way it happens. And so, I always enjoy sitting down here and kind of puts a smile on my face. It also gets like a sounding board for me because I can explain to you what we're working on, and if it doesn't make sense, you'll say, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, you want a layperson's perspective, and if Derek and I are anything, we would be that, right?
Don't sell yourself short. Well, at least not Derek. Don't sell Derek so short.
I shouldn't have put him in the same bucket as me. That was Derek. I apologize. That was uncalled for. Okay, big show today. We're going to talk about auto theft across the country. It is a huge topic right now. The numbers are astounding. Bryan Gast, a former OPP officer and now an expert in that field, is going to join us. But before we do that, as always, let's get to the first word to Frisco. And the biggest story, I think, right now, for us certainly, Oakville News and a relaunch to a brand new free news site.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I think we mentioned it a few weeks back on our show. We've been doing a lot of expansion in the Burlington, Hamilton area. And now Oakville, we've purchased Oakville News, which was an independent online news site. We're getting it ready for a relaunch, so it's going to look like our sites and feel like all our other sites. It's going to keep the name Oakville News, but it's no longer going to be a subscription-based site. It's going to be free for everybody. Obviously, you can contribute to local journalism if you feel inclined to do so. But it's going to be joining our site, nearby sites in Burlington, Halton Hills, Flamborough. And it's super exciting, and I know that Mike Purvis, the managing editor here, has been working with the team over there in Oakville, and I think they're probably a little bit nervous, but excited at the same time, and I'm really hopeful, and I know for sure the readers in Oakville are going to benefit from it.
All right, look forward to that. This past Saturday was the Random Acts of Kindness Day, and of course, random acts of kindness seem to happen almost every day here across the Village Media Network. Yeah,
I know. We have a program called the Random Acts of Kindness program, and it's something that I saw when I first came here, and it's expanded to. It started in the Sioux, and it's in so many other markets. I'm not going to name them all right, but Sudbury, Stratford, Barrie, Orillia, and it's basically an opportunity for people to nominate good people in the community who deserve a little something special, right? And you would know better than I would too, but we've given away a car in some cases. We've done
two, I think. Derek said. Yeah.
But we've gift cards to people, sporting equipment for good causes, and we just surprise these people and say, hey, we understand that you're doing great work in your community. So Saturday was Random Acts of Kindness Day, so we kind of ran a piece across those websites, kind of a reminder about what we do, and that's the fun thing about working at Village. We definitely care about the journalism we do and do strong journalism, but we're also really involved in our communities and try to be really ingrained in our communities, and trying to shine a light on people doing great things and rewarding them for that.
Yeah, good stuff. It was a great piece. I actually read it on Subry.com.
There you go.
Yeah, terrific piece. Okay, finally, as we wrap up the first word to Frisco, a wild story out of Sault Ste. Marie involving a guy that in 2022 wanted to be mayor, and now he's been charged with a count of felony murder in California.
In California, this is you talk about how news comes together. This, over the Family Day weekend, we received a tip. There was a news report in L.A. Citing the police saying that a Canadian had been arrested for murder, and that they had found the body, a badly decomposed body of a woman in an RV, and that this person had allegedly confessed to this killing. We were told, and we confirmed it, that the Canadian man in the article was a person from Sault Ste. Marie named Jeff Primo. And when we searched for him, popped up right away was David Helwig. Actually did a story about him back in 2022 because he had tried to run for mayor, but put his nomination form in on the final day and was 2 signatures short of getting his nomination. So, and kind of eerie foreshadowing, he talked about how next time I'm going to make sure I get it in on the first day, not the last day. These are all allegations. Nothing's been tested in court, but obviously the community has a ton of questions. A lot of people knew him, and a lot of details are not out there yet. We like I said, we've confirmed that he's charged with murder in Los Angeles. The trial has obviously not begun yet. A lot of unanswered questions, and so we'll be covering this, and we're going to keep covering it as it unfolds. And
as we sit here taping today, we still don't know who the woman is.
No, the police have not identified the victim. His social media, his Facebook page was kind of chronicling his RV journey across the United States, and there is a woman that's in a lot of these videos and posts. We didn't name her because we don't know if she's the victim. We're not sure at this point. And what was really eerie for me was this is a guy who was posting multiple times a day, and then around the end of November, when he's alleged to have committed this crime, it goes dark. His Facebook page goes dark until January 1st, when I think he posts something like "Lucky to be alive" or "I'm still alive," and then that was kind of his last public post before he allegedly turned himself in early February. So yeah, one of those, again, talking about the way news unfolds, we got the tip on the Sunday of Family Day weekend, and by Family Day Monday morning, the story was out, and we had it confirmed, and Alex Flood did a solid job in covering that story, and he's going to keep covering it.
All right, good stuff. Okay, on today's show, we're going to talk auto thefts, and this is a problem that is just running rampant all across Canada. Bryan Gast from the OPP, former OPP officer, is going to join us with his expertise. But I'll tell you, I was watching some videos online today of how these car thieves do it and how fast they do it, and it's mind-blowing to me.
It's crazy, and I'm not really immersed in it. I don't really understand. Obviously, I know it's a massive problem, so I'm really excited to talk to Bryan about this.
All right, Bryan Gast will join us next when Inside the Village returns right after this.
Reporters, editors, and journalists who go the extra mile to get the story and get it right. Go behind the scenes with those who cover the stories that matter most to you and your community. Look for it in the Village Features section of your favorite Village Media website across Ontario.
When you need a mortgage, the right choice can really save you money and stress. With True North Mortgage, you'll get your best rate, better options, and timely advice to help you save thousands. Bring home your best mortgage today with experts you can trust.
Back on Inside the Village with Michael Friscolanti, Editor-in-Chief here at Village Media. I'm Scott Sexsmith. We're very pleased to be joined on the road by Bryan Gast. Bryan is a former OPP officer and now an expert on auto thefts and vice president of investigative services with Équité Association. Bryan, we're going to talk car thieves. It's very fitting that you would be calling in from your car today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Lots to talk about today, Bryan. Let's start with the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Back in 2022, vehicle theft claims paid out exceeded $1.2 billion for the first time ever. Why has this situation gotten so bad and seemingly continues to escalate?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big number. And of that $1.2 billion, that's national. Ontario represented over $700 million of that. So significant problem. It's one that we've seen escalating since for the last 6 or 7 years, but nothing like it started to spike after the pandemic. The pandemic, really, with the supply chain issues, vehicles hard to get. Organized crime has entered into the space even more than they were before, using the vehicle as a commodity, making money, profiting from the sale, the theft, and then the ultimate sale of these vehicles. And it's extremely lucrative for them. So really the last 3 or 4 years, we're starting to see significant spikes.
Yeah, and is that really what it is? Because we've seen car thefts forever. Ever since there were cars, there were people stealing cars. But really, it's just that the money's so good now and the opportunities there?
Yeah, there's many reasons to steal cars. I mean, everything from a joyride to using the vehicle as a crime vehicle to commit another crime, using it as stealing it, chopping up its parts, stealing the vehicle, reventing it, organized crime, using the vehicle itself, and then the biggest bucket, what we're seeing the most, especially in Ontario and Quebec, is vehicles that are being stolen specifically for export. So there's a targeted group of vehicles that there's a demand for from their buyers overseas. And really, it's the vehicles on our top 10 list are really the ones that are at risk the most. All vehicles are at risk, but those are the vehicles that are being stolen in record numbers and largely being exported.
Can you walk us through that a bit, Bryan? That's always kind of fascinating me. This is dumb question number one. If I'm a car thief and I've stolen this high-demand car, where am I taking it so that it eventually gets overseas?
Yeah, and when I talk about organized crime, it might not be your traditional organized crime, what you might envision, but it's really multiple people working together to commit crimes. And they are very sophisticated. They have very significant networks, everything from the scout that's looking for the vehicle, the criminal that has the technology and the ability to steal the vehicle, and then the groups that are able to take that vehicle, and I'm talking about exports now, the vehicles to a location to containerize and get them to the exit points of Canada, which is primarily would be the Port of Montreal, as well as other destinations and exit points as well. And then you have the groups that are receiving the vehicle and then either using the vehicle overseas or selling the vehicles and putting it into the market in other countries. So it's very, very sophisticated. They are very well connected, and there's multiple groups that are doing this.
Wow. Bryan, I want to talk for a second, if we can, about technology, and you just alluded to it. Gone are the days of using a coat hanger to get into a vehicle to pop the lock. In fact, I was watching a couple of videos preparing for our chat today and saw one thief with what looked like a giant antenna up against a house front door, full well knowing or assuming that the key fob is on the other side, and it somehow transmits all of that data, and boom, just like that, they gain access to the vehicle that they so desire. How has that technology changed?
It has changed, and you're absolutely right. Early in my policing career, the method of theft and the method of choice by criminals was essentially a screwdriver. Break the steering column, crank the ignition, and off you go. 2007, Transport Canada mandated all vehicles manufactured and sold in Canada have an immobilizer. So that changed things. You couldn't do that initial method of theft. And then now criminals, you're absolutely right. It's really evolved in their ability to steal vehicles. Unfortunately, that standard hasn't been modernized since, but criminals definitely have sophisticated methods to bypass the immobilizer system that's currently mandated. And you're right, they're using technology. So that example right there would be the relay attack. They're trying to capture that radio frequency between the key fob and the vehicle to be able to trick the vehicle into thinking that the key fob is closer than it is, and actually giving the command to start the vehicle, and then reprogramming thefts. And I always try not to give a how-to guide to steal vehicles, but I think it's important for people to recognize what methods are out there so they can protect themselves. So the other one would be the onboard diagnostic port. Its intended purpose is when you have a problem with your vehicle, you take it into the mechanic, they plug their computer into it, do a diagnostic check, and determine what's wrong. Criminals are plugging into that same port and reprogramming key fobs, and that's a significant one. So I'm sure we'll get to it, but there's ways to minimize your risk, especially with those two.
I definitely want to get to that, but before that, How long does this all take, those two methods, Brian? We talking seconds, minutes?
Yeah, so there's minutes. I mean, there's methods that take 15 to 20 seconds, start to finish. Depends on their equipment, their experience, and their ability, and the tools that they have. So that's the scary part. What used to happen, say at 2 and 5 in the morning, in the quiet, in the darkness of night, they had a little bit more time to work on it. They are so proficient at it now that it's happening in broad daylight in busy parking lots. They're so quick, they're so good at it that they're stealing the vehicles from all types of locations and all times throughout the day and night.
It's unbelievable. You mentioned the top 10 list. What are some of the most highly sought after cars that thieves are going after?
Yeah, so if you look at, look at it regionally. If in Ontario, it's all SUVs, pickup trucks, all newer model, luxury autos, sedans. And what's unique about in common amongst all of those in our top 10 is they're all the vulnerability of that keyless entry, keyless ignition, push to start ignition system. With conveniences come vulnerabilities. So we have everything from the Toyota, Lexus, Land Rover. Those are all that are on our top 10 list, CRV, but the commonality is newer model and SUVs and pickup trucks primarily. Conversely, if you look out west, vehicles are still being stolen. Like per capita, there's more vehicles being stolen in Alberta than in Ontario and Quebec. But again, thefts are different. The reason of theft is primarily used to commit other offenses, but now we're starting to see a shift in that type of theft as well.
Brian, the feds recently announced funding to the tune of about $121 million to assist Ontario police to crack down on these thefts. It's a big number, but is it enough?
It's a great number, and it's great to see many police services, just because of pure capacity and competing priorities, don't have dedicated auto theft units. Peel Regional Police and York Regional Police were the only two that were left standing. But with that announcement, the province of Ontario now have a provincial auto theft unit, which is great. What's also significant about that is the dedicated prosecutors that are attached to that unit. So not just going after the simple theft and possession charges, but going after the organized crime. That because this is not a victimless crime. These are serious offenses. It's clear that these organized crime groups are profiting, and they're financially motivated crimes. They're funding their criminal operations, whether it's drugs, firearms, or whatever the case may be. So it's a great step forward when it comes to law enforcement. And the other thing I'll say is I've never seen the collaboration and cooperation between all police services and private-public partnerships that I have been in the last 6 to 8 months, not only within Ontario, but including Quebec and other provinces throughout the country. So it is going to take multiple stakeholders to beat this crisis, as well as I can't say enough about our international partners that we learn from and work with to not only identify trends and patterns, but to repatriate some of these vehicles back to Canada.
What would success look like, say, 3 years from now, after all this funding and these new units? What would be success in your eyes?
I think success is really dictated by the number of vehicles that are stolen. I think that's the best gauge as to how we're doing. Because I can say over the last 6 to 7 years, that trend, that graph has been going up and then spiked in the last 3 to 4 years, 3 years. So if we can flatline that and have a downward trend, that's where we're starting to see a difference. And right now, Canada is being targeted. We work with Interpol, and many countries are stealing vehicles from North America, including Canada, and we're trying to change that.
Okay, Brian, let's talk an ounce of prevention. What more can we as consumers be doing? Obviously, it extends beyond making sure that your vehicle is locked each night.
Yeah, no, and good question. And I think that public awareness piece is very important. And thank you for getting this message out. We call it a layered approach. You don't have to do it all, but what you want to do is slow down the criminal. You want to make your vehicle less of a target, harder to steal. So if you have the luxury and the ability to park in a garage, that's always a great thing. Park in a well-lit area. block your vehicle with another vehicle that's not as prone to vehicle theft, using an aftermarket immobilizer, using an aftermarket tracking device, use a steering wheel lock, using a pedal lock, using an onboard diagnostic port lock, using a Faraday pouch or something that protects the radio frequency from being captured. Again, you don't have to do them all, but if you can do 2 or 3 of those, it really does diminish and make your vehicle harder to steal.
I think it was Premier Doug Ford the other day during one of these announcements said, "We're coming after you." He sent a direct message to car thieves. How much do you think they're listening with all that's been happening the last couple of weeks with these announcements?
Well, I hope they are listening, because I know from when talking to our international partners, they are seeing what Canada is doing federally and provincially. They know law enforcement is definitely engaged, and I hope they are receiving the message that what they got away with in the past isn't going to be as easy for them in the future, and they'll think twice about targeting our Canadian vehicles, and then the consequences that will go with that, especially the organized crime groups.
Bryan, before we let you go, anything else that we didn't talk about that maybe you wanted to surface before we let you go?
No, I think it's great. I think awareness, I don't think any one organization is going to be successful. We're pushing for all sectors to step up, and that was what was very, very excellent about the summit. Everybody came. I was fortunate to be there. Everybody came to the table talking about the problem, what the solutions were, and it was more than just talk. It was actually putting a framework together, concrete plans to curb this. So, and we're seeing evidence with that, with these announcements that have been being made. And again, we work with law enforcement every day, and it's great to see the initiatives and making the vehicles harder to steal. And then going after the organized crime groups responsible. I think we're on the right road.
All right, good stuff. Bryan Gast, Vice President of Investigative Services with Équité Association. Bryan, appreciate your time this afternoon. Have a safe drive.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
When you need a mortgage, the right choice can really save you money and stress. With True North Mortgage, you'll get your best rate, better options, and timely advice to help you save thousands. Bring home your best mortgage today with experts you can trust.
Reporters, editors, and journalists who go the extra mile to get the story and get it right. Go behind the scenes with those who cover the stories that matter most to you and your community. Look for it in the Village Features section of your favorite Village Media website across Ontario.
Back to wrap on another episode of Inside the Village. Bryan Gast, great guest. How ironic that we're talking about people stealing cars, and I think he's the first guest ever to call in from his car.
At least we think it was his car.
That's right.
Derek Turner with the line of the show.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a good point, though. We're not sure that it was his car.
Yeah. I actually found myself looking around in the rear view window to see, like, is someone going to be poking around, like, looking to steal that car? It looked like a nice car.
Was it a Lexus? Was it a Land Rover?
I didn't want to ask her. I didn't want to say, like, you know, he works hard if he has a nice car.
He deserves it.
I'm sure he knows how to protect his car from being stolen, although we probably should have asked him if his car has ever been stolen. It would have been a relevant question.
Yeah, just amazing, though, the stats and the technology and the tricks and you almost want to say the skilled trades that they use now to steal these vehicles. It's wild.
I know. The way you described it, too, like, I hadn't seen like, I'm not an expert in this. And
yeah.
What you described, it was jaw-dropping, like, the way they could do that, right? And I just I think to myself, you must have other marketable skills if you can do this. Like go be an electrician or something.
You know, I remember years ago locking my keys in my vehicle. We've all done it. And
I've never done it.
You've never done that?
No.
All right. Most of us have done it. Frisco aside, and using a coat hanger to try and get around, to pop the lock.
Yeah.
Oh my!
I do remember my dad doing that a couple times. He locked his key in the car.
I scratched the window.
Yeah.
I mean, it took probably 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And these guys are doing this in seconds.
I know, it's crazy. But I still am fascinated by it. And again, you're going off, TV shows and legends of organized crime, right? But so these lower level guys, they boost the car, they take it. They drive it somewhere, like a shop, under the cover of somewhere, right? And then it just gets driven down to the port, and someone turns a blind eye as these carts get loaded with what everyone around knows are stolen cars. I mean, obviously, Montreal has a large organized crime presence, so there's definitely some organized crime elements at work there to get these carts, these crates full of cars, which we know from lots of news reports that they end up overseas.
Yep.
And they've been found over there,
in West Africa.
In West Africa, yeah, with the insurance documents and everything,
ownership
just in the glove compartment,
Yep.
right? So yeah, it's and I forgot to mention, but Patrick Kane at the Trillium did a great piece a couple weeks ago about crunching numbers that the Ministry of Transport had given him about cars that had been written off, I believe it was, at the insurance company, and it was like 50 cars a day that were stolen,
That's
right?
crazy.
And how the numbers broke down, it's crazy. And I think he's right. It's not a victimless crime. There are victims in this crime, and it's easy to say, well, it's just property crime. But it'll be really interesting to see in 3 years if this kind of funding and this effort they're putting into is going to make a difference.
Yeah, these thieves have come a long way since the days of just stealing catalytic converters.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All right. That's it for this week's episode of Inside the Village. ITV at villagemedia.ca if you'd like to reach out. Of course, every single episode that we have done, as we are now well into Season 3, can be found at insidethevillage.ca, wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and, of course, across the Village Media Network. For Derek Turner, executive producer of the show, Michael Friscolanti, editor-in-chief here at Village Media, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll talk to you next week.
You've been listening to Inside the Village.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe, provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.